All right, welcome everybody to Atypical Tarot, and I have a special guest. I have Tarot from Kids, Weights, and Tarot, and she agreed to talk to me today about psychic development. If you're interested in her YouTube channel, check that out. I'll put the link in the description. Also, she has a website that I'll put there. She also has a tarot deck, so make sure you check that out. Check out the deck reviews on that deck that I have and I really love as well. And there's just, I mean, I could go on and on. We're only going to talk for about an hour, so I'm not going to give too much of an introduction. I mean, she's a singer, a photographer. The list goes on and on. But yeah, so thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for asking me to come. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah. It's our first time actually doing any type of, we talked before, but it's first time actually doing the talk on my channel. So that's nice. I wanted to talk to you about psychic development for a while because I really like the videos that you do on psychic development. Those are really, really good. The ones where you give us a task and then we report back what we thought, and then you go over that. Those are really, really good. Have you what kind of feedback have you gotten on those? Have you seen
good feedback actually, because I mean, a lot of those videos, they're now like a few years old now and stuff. I do want to make more. I just need to come up with some more ideas. But like, people are still going and watching them now and still like adding what they got from it, or asking for feedback. So I'm still giving feedback even though they've been out for a little while. So people are still finding them really valuable, and I love that people are still actually trying to do the activities. So yeah,
I think you've been doing the same ones again. I mean, I think that the more practice, I think it helps, right? I mean, I find, like, with myself, I feel like I need a lot of practice. I felt bad because I think, like, I was so off on a lot of my guesses, but I thought, hey, let me just try, get out of my comfort zone and try and see if I can come up with what's going on here. But you were very nice about it.
Well, no, I like that everybody gets something different from them. So like one of them I do, it's like trying to connect to jewelry. Like, there's a piece of jewelry that I got from Italy. And it's interesting what people, even now when they go and visit that video, what they get from it, because it's all bits and pieces that relate to it, but not everybody sees it the same way. And I think that's also why I made the videos, for people to see those comments and see that people can be quote unquote right, but not see exactly the same thing, so it's all based on, you as the person and what's coming through you, and what, your translation is like, in terms of your clairs. Some people will feel something or see something or get a hint of this or a hint of that. And I think they're all like, right. It's just all a different perspective of, the same thing.
Yeah. I feel like I feel more. So I feel like I'm more on the empathic side, but I don't really know, like, what exercises would really develop that. I know, well, tarot is one, so using tarot has helped me. But what do you recommend?
Okay, so there's one. Did I not make a video of it? Maybe I talked about it during a live chat, but maybe I just didn't make a video. Well, now I have an idea.
Okay.
So it was for feeling. I'm trying to like hit all the various. I know that there's more than what people think of, just like hearing, seeing, smelling, all of that. But there was one that was for feeling, and it was like I did make a video on it. Okay, so it was sitting in a room, meditating, and first, starting at the basics, trying to understand your own energy. What does your own energy feel like? And getting comfortable with that after meditation for a while, and then you can let's say bring in a picture of somebody who means a lot to you, and as you look at that picture, how has your energy field changed? Are you feeling warm sensations? Do you feel like tingles? Do you have heart palpitations, like the butterflies when you look at this person's picture? And then, go back into meditation. What does it feel like with that picture out of the room now? And now you're just sitting with your own energy again. Do the same with maybe the picture of a person that doesn't make you feel so good, and now how has your energy shifted? Are you, has your vibration gone down where now you're kind of in a funky mood, like you don't feel so good? And just kind of taking various like pictures and objects and just seeing how that changes your mood, and your energy and stuff like that, your feeling. Another one was to involve a friend or the family dog or like whatever.
Oh yeah,
And
pets are great.
yeah, pets are perfect. So like if you want to call Lassie into the room or something, as they get closer to you, try while you're in meditation, can you feel them getting closer to you? You know how when you feel like somebody's looking over your shoulder or somebody's staring at you, you turn around, it's like some weirdo's been staring at you the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
you can kind of feel, like, I don't know, you just feel like, kind of feel their energy a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, where you're like, I feel like somebody's staring at me.
Mm.
And that's because that they have entered your auric field. Some people's fields are just wider than others. And if you yourself are an empath, then your auric field's probably really wide. So somebody could be standing, like I'm looking out at the pool area of my complex. So somebody could be standing way on the other side of the pool, but I can kind of feel them looking at me, and it's just like, because they've entered your field. And so that's also an interesting thing to kind of play with too, is, have somebody at the other end of the house. And at what point do you start to feel them? And that's where you know where your actual field is at.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah. I like that. I like that you mentioned knowing your own energy first, because it's kind of like, like I took a lie detector for a job, not for like anything else, but for gotta explain that little detail. So I took this lie detector, and one of the things they did was to ask me some questions that I would totally be honest about, like what's your name, and things like that. They get a baseline of what my I guess feelings were when I said different things, and then as they introduced other things, they compared it. So it makes a lot of sense to have that comparison in the first place, because you have to distinguish what is yours from what someone else's. That's really interesting. I like that. And I haven't really, I don't think I really sat and tried to feel out my own energy before. That's a really good idea.
Well, yeah, because there are people that ask me quite a bit, actually, because I'm a medium. So people are like, how do you know when you're dealing with the actual spirit, or if it's a trickster spirit? Like, how do you know that spirit is even there? And I'm like, you have to start with knowing what you feel like first. Like, it's very hard to understand what, because we're bombarded with energy. There's plants, there's animals, there's people, there's weather, there's all kinds of stuff bombarding our energy field. And if we don't know what we feel like, it's very hard to distinguish anything else. It's kind of like, well, now I'm going off of baking because I was watching you and your girl bake. So now I'm thinking of baking. But like, if you don't know what just a sugar cookie tastes like, it's hard to get fancy and add all the other stuff to it, if you don't know what the base is like, so I don't know, just go off of cooking.
No, that's a good one. I like that analogy. Really good. Yeah. I know, like there's been times where I felt stuff, but I was never able to really verify it. Like I'd feel something about like maybe an event, or maybe something that I should really listen to, and sometimes I'll go with it, but I feel like it was the right thing to do, and then other times I might ignore stuff, and then I always remember those times when I ignore the feelings I get, or the promptings that I get, the little nudge, like to do certain things. I always remember that, and I'm like, okay, I need to stop doing that. I need to really try to just, okay, if I'm feeling something or feeling a certain way, just go with it. And I wanted to keep record of it to see, okay, well, what's happening when I listen to these things, and what's happening when I don't, and just to keep a journal or keep a record of it, because I think sometimes I take that for granted. I take the fact that I'm, not feeling certain things for granted, and I'll just go about my day and not really focus on it, not really pay as much attention to it. And so there's things there, And like you said, when you know yourself, you know when something's there and it's coming from, something else, or it's coming from just a prompting or something that you're getting that's trying to, give you some clues or some hint about something. And it's a matter of really, I think, taking the time and not really ignoring it. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how you would strengthen,
Hmm.
anything is by giving it attention, so if like your intuition's like, hey, and then you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's cool, and then you
Right. Right.
and then after a while it's kind of like, okay, well, she's not even like listening to me, so
Yeah. What's the point? It's like wasting
yeah.
energy. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. And you're right. I think it strengthens it. It definitely does when you actually will take it and use it. Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
well
It makes
that's
sense.
well that's what gave me, like, once I got a bit more like confidence, in reading tarot cards and doing mediumship readings for people. And even though like my ego mind is like, nah, like you're just making stuff up. Like,
Mhm.
what if you're wrong? And this person just thinks you're like, you're super crazy, and I've kind of turned that off, not 100%, but like it's off more than it was before, where before like the loudest voice was the, that, no, just ignore it, it's not real, it's like, what on could that be based on anything,
Mhm.
and then there was the little voice that was like, no, really, there is a spirit standing right over there.
Oh yeah.
And so the more I trusted it, because it seemed like I was always just guessing correctly, the more that other voice that says, no, no, just ignore it, it became more and more quiet. And so it seemed like I was getting better at what I was doing, because I was just kind of shutting off the whatever ego logic mind,
Mhm.
for a while, just so I can focus on my intuition. So I think that's also how I think people get like better at something, is just, it's like the fool card, I guess. You got to take a leap of faith that, you're not talking craziness, you're talking to from your higher self,
You have to take that leap of faith, and that's one of the things that I've been working on, because I think, and I'm fairly new. I still feel fairly new to tarot, to my spirituality in general, just still kind of
Mm,
figuring everything's out. So there, I still have that ego thing that's like, oh, maybe not, or, are you sure? Just kind of sort of second guessing stuff, and I feel like it does stop.
mm,
It stops progress, and I think the more I've actually come a long way. I've gotten to the point now where I'm willing to talk about certain things. Like I've had discussions with groups of people, and we've
mm,
we've started talking, like, on my channel, about extraterrestrials, about our experiences with feeling the energy of other beings, interdimensional
mm.
stuff, and we talked about like hypnosis sessions and things like that. And I'm actually gonna have one of those coming
Oh,
up.
cool.
I'll talk about it. We had to postpone. Like we were gonna do the interview just to
Hmm.
get to know each other,
Oh, yeah.
but we had to postpone because she lives in Colorado and there were these fires. So
Oh,
unfortunately, yeah, I didn't want to like say, hey, we'll just, I don't, it's okay if things are burning around you. You'll be all right.
ignore the burning trees.
Yeah, it's all a part of the experience.
Yeah.
No, no. So yeah, but when I do that though, I'll let everybody know how that goes. But yeah, so I've had different experiences with extraterrestrials, sort of a
Hmm.
kind of an interdimensional thing,
Hmm.
and I never really wanted to talk about it or admit it, or really, I kind of put it in the background, and because I had that ego thing going on in my mind,
Hmm.
like, oh, maybe you're crazy. So yeah.
Well,
um
there was a little like turning point for me with mediumship. And
mm,
I remember like the exact day. And it was when my friend who, well, she's my good friend now, but she used to be my voice teacher for opera. And she had come over to the house, and I forgot what she was talking about. She was going through something, and so we're just talking on the couch. And behind her, all of a sudden, I see this man who's sitting in one of our empty chairs, sitting behind her, like laughing this big, like belly laugh. And he just seems like so jovial. And and kind. And then he stands up and it's like a snapshot I see of like him holding like a little girl in his arms with like blonde hair. Um, and I just kept seeing this over and over again. And she's talking. Um, and it's like, I'm like looking at her and I'm looking at what's going on behind her. And I'm like thinking, am I making that up in my head? Like, what's going on there? I'm like, is there really somebody behind my friend right now? Because this stuff would pop up. And then I was trying not to say anything because, and then I just couldn't hold it anymore. And I was like, Charmaine, I was like, okay, don't get freaked out, but I'm pretty sure there's a spirit behind you.
Oh
And
my
I was like,
goodness.
and I'm describing him. And she's like, get out of town, get out of town. She's like, you're describing my grandfather. And she says, he
Oh,
passed away some time ago, but she says, my husband and I were going through some photographs. And there was one photograph that like really brought back all the memories. And she says, it's one of them where he's standing up and he was wearing what I described that he was wearing. And he was holding her as a little girl,
oh
and
wow.
so that picture that I saw in my mind was the picture she was looking at, like the day before. And I was like, oh, and oh, I know
Wow.
why she was there is because her husband's best friend had passed away like the day before, just out of like nowhere. He just like had a heart attack and died. And then all of a sudden she was going to leave because she says, I have to get back to Dave. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I see this guy enter the room and he's making all kinds of jokes. And then he says something about Tom Selleck, and
Mhm.
he's like talking about Magnum PI or whatever. He's
Uh-huh.
making these jokes, and then he's talking about sailing, and somebody's calf muscle. And I said, okay, Charmaine, before you go, I got like somebody else who's and so I told her, and she was like, you're describing my husband's best friend. And
Wow.
she goes, all they ever do is sail together. And she
Mhm.
says, and Dave recently hurt his calf muscle on the day that he heard that his friend had passed away. And she says, but I don't understand the Magnum PI, but I'll tell him. And so that night, she says she told Dave, and she says he went pale as a ghost. And he said, how did she know that joke? That was an inside joke that only me and my best friend know. And he
Oh my
says, and it had
goodness.
to do with Magnum PI. And I was like, what? And I was like, okay, I need to cut it with like the thinking that all this stuff isn't real, that I'm a loony bin. I was like, because how would I know all that stuff? I said, I can't make that stuff up. And I was like, okay. So I was like, we're turning off my ego from now on. And I was like, and I'm just going to like go with it. I'm just going to open my mouth, just like go with it.
Yeah. 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 I totally agree. It's interesting how you get these pieces of things and then like some of the things won't make sense, but then, it builds up later to where they'll like remember something or go to even
Mm-hmm.
someone else. Like she went to Dave and she was like, oh, she mentioned that. Then he had a piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
And how it all comes together. It's not like everything, it seems like not everything makes sense like right away.
Mm-hmm.
Is that usually the case, or is it sometimes where
Yeah.
it's like everything's mhm.
Um, you know, I I try to tell, people like the people that I read for, like, do my mediumship stuff for, and for people just ask me questions. I said, when I said, mediums and whatever, just everybody. I hate to say just mediums because it's like everybody, all of us, we're all energy. So we're our own translation system. All my past experiences and the way I look at information, I'm a very visual person, so I'm going to see things very visually. Some people are more tactile, hence they feel more. They're usually empaths and things, kinesthetic learners.
Mhm.
um, and so when like information's coming to me, I can only see it through my translation system. So it comes in bits and pieces. And
Mhm.
so I tell people that in the 3D plane, we use words in a particular way and everything seems linear, but if you're on a dimension where there is no time and there is no linear, then things are going to come across to us very jumbled and out of order, and that they wouldn't make sense. And so then our job on this plane is to try to be detectives and try to get those bits and pieces to put together, I guess, coherent pictures or coherent thought for us. Whereas I said, like, I always feel like everybody on the other side, they speak English or whatever, but it's just not coming across in a way that is really the way we would use words and things, because they're using everything. They're using like picture and color and feeling and words, and they're throwing it all together, and they're like, here you go. And it's very clear to them. And to us, we're like, huh?
Yeah.
What, why can't you just talk to me, like one-on-one? And it's like, but that's how they talk, it's like they're just energy. So they don't have vocal
Yeah.
cords.
Yeah, it's different. I think that communication is just a totally different thing on other levels than we know in the 3D. It's because I feel like I get a lot of symbols, like even sacred geometry that I have to focus on. And it seems like I get more from that than from if I was to get some sort of sentence or bit of information. But a part of me really wants to get like that actual conversation going, like like I want that because I'm human. I'm like, I want to talk, but I feel like on the other side they're like, why do you want to talk? Look, that's not the way to get what we want to tell you. We want to give you pictures and images and things like that. And so I think I have to really learn to really value the fact that there could be other forms of communication that are just way more efficient and effective, and keep that as a part of, okay, well, it's not like if I'm not getting certain things, it doesn't mean that my connection, with the spirit realm is limited. It just means that maybe I'm looking at it from the wrong point of view. Maybe I need to
exactly
change the focus. Because I got this deck, it's called the Mystic Martian Oracle.
Oh, okay.
And,
yeah.
And it's got all these extraterrestrials on it, but it also has I don't know, maybe I think it's like 40 cards, but I think there's like 15 of those cards that are just like flower of life, like the Merkaba, like different symbols, like symbol for water and all that. And I tell you, like, I'll pull cards from there and I want to get like extraterrestrials, but I'm getting all the symbols, like what's going on? And as soon as that started happening, it's been happening over and over again. I was like, yep, this is definitely a sign that I need to really focus on just a different way of thinking about my approach to this. But yeah.
It was you're bringing up extraterrestrials, and it reminded me that's not something that I've worked with much, but all of a sudden, like that's like a new thing that all of a sudden I'm working with a group called the Azez, and the more I've been working with them, all of a sudden it's like every freaking extraterrestrial in the universe has come in being like, hey, hello.
Yeah.
I'm like, I went from like never working with these guys to all of a sudden I'm like, who are you? What are you? What is going on?
Yeah.
But for James, that's something that he's worked with more than spirit, like me, I'm off in the spirit realm. I'm like in 4D all the time, where he's always off in like, the extraterrestrial realm. And so it's kind of interesting because the longer, we're here together, the more now I'm working with all the extraterrestrials, and now he's starting to kind of like feel spirit here and there. And he's like, this is not my realm. Like, what is going on? This is unusual.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that, because I don't know if you remember, but when we did that group meeting before we did the course, we had like a meeting. It was me, you, James, and I can't remember the
Diane.
names, but Diane, and there was another guy, I think. And so we got together and we did that meeting and we pulled some cards. And do you remember the card that I pulled? Like, I pulled this card for you, and it was for us. It was the card that we pulled. And it was, but for some reason I thought it was for you, because it had like, it was the four of cups. I think it was the 4 of cups. I have the image in my head, but it was from the 78 Tarot Astral. It was the 4 of cups. Okay. And there was a person sitting under a tree, and there was a spaceship, and there was this little extraterrestrial trying to offer her something. And it came to my and it came to my mind. I was like, I think, this card, I feel like the card was for you. And I was like, I didn't want to say anything, but I never forgot that. I mean, when you said that, it reminded me. It was this little, I I'm gonna see if I can get. I know I don't have that deck here, but
Mhm.
yeah. And I was like, Four of Cups, extraterrestrials. I think they're trying to get your attention, but you're not really paying.
Well, yeah, that's what I was just telling James that last night. I was like, for me, in my perspective, it looks like all of a sudden all these extraterrestrials just showed up. And I said,
Mhm,
but I think what it was is they've always been there.
mhm,
But because wasn't tuned into them, not listening, not paying attention to my gut, because sometimes I would think there's something there, and then I'm like, nah. And I'm
mhm.
like, I don't even work with extraterrestrials. Like, no, that can't be it. Because I'm so used to and comfortable with like spirit and
Mhm.
weird, bizarre other energies that are out there. Um, and so now that I've opened myself up to, beings from different places and energies of different places, I'm like, oh, now it's like I can see something that had been there all along. I
Mhm.
just wasn't tuned into it. And I think that's the way it is for everybody.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't believe there's anybody that's like more quote unquote psychic than anybody else. We're all psychic beings. We're just on different vibration levels, and we're just open to what we're comfortable with.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've been kind of thinking about that. And I've been thinking it's not it's not the same as when you think about like a sport or I mean,
Hmm.
I guess you could kind of use that analogy, but when I think about that, I think, okay, well, there's some sports that, at my age, I'm probably not going to be able to like go into professionally. I could probably play them as like an intramural or something like that, but I'm not going to be like a world class level athlete in
Hmm.
some in certain things. So, but I think with our psychic abilities, I don't know that we really have those limitations. I think of course there's different, we start off at different points, and I think other people have different
Hmm.
strengths, like being an empath or whatever. But I think that if we really focus on different things, I think that we can all get to I don't think there's those limits, those caps on that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't I
know.
don't believe in there being limits, because I the way I think about it is like, okay, once the vessel shed, the human body shed, you're pure energy,
Mm,
and that basically feel, know everything, because you're connected to, the a source energy. And so the only thing that maybe dulls some of that knowledge and understanding is our very dense and thick vessel that we're currently inhabiting. So I don't believe that something is possible for someone but not someone else, because at everybody's core, they're all pure energy. So it's just how open is the vessel that you're in, going getting past its traumas and all of its shadows and its healing work, and what it feels comfortable with and it doesn't feel comfortable with, the strengths that the actual body has. Like some people, like, I actually hear a lot of music because I'm
mhm.
connected to music all the time. So sometimes when I get messages, they're song lyrics, they're titles of songs. I get a lot of jams that start going into my head, and people see me like rocking out to the music that's in my head. And it's because it's how I'm getting messages, because this vehicle that I'm in really it's attuned to music. Some other people, they're attuned to their bodies, they're bodybuilders, so they might feel more. Some people are very logic mind, they might be able to just know certain images or certain things that are coming in. So I think that maybe the body itself has certain strengths, but there are no limitations to the spirit that's inside the body. Like
Interesting.
the long-winded answer.
No, that's good. Speaking of the body, do you think that there are certain things in our diet or certain things that we could be, taking into our bodies that can interfere? I've heard different perspectives on this. Heard some people say no, it doesn't matter as long as you can, really focus and get into a meditative state. You should be able to do the same things. And
Mm.
then I've heard other people say no, there are certain chemicals and things that could be you could be taking in on purpose, or you could be just in your environment around you that you might not be aware of.
Okay, well, I think it's not like a simple answer. I think it's kind of a weird mesh of the both sides,
Mhm.
where I do believe that the spirit that's in us, which is, infinite, and has the infinite capacity to manifest. And basically we have manifested our world, everything that's in it, at least in my interpretation, I believe that physics exists because we believe it exists. Gravity exists because we all believe as a collective it exists. If we all thought we could fly, I'm pretty sure we could all fly.
Oh, that's
if
good.
that
We were
was
talking about that the other day. Good. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's like, so there's that aspect of it, that we put out what we believe to be true. And as a collective, we're even stronger in that notion. So maybe I believe I could fly, but if like the rest of the world doesn't believe that, it's going to be very hard for me to manifest that for myself,
Yeah.
at least, so there's that, and when it comes to like disease and things like that, I believe that's all kind of the body and the spirit trying to get something across to you in the physical realm. Like, hey, there's something out of balance here. And yes, I do believe that you can have somebody in the medical field treat you and help you on that physical level, but also it has to be helped in the spiritual level as well. Understanding what caused that cancer or what caused that bronchitis or something, what's behind it truly, so it doesn't come back again, so the body doesn't have to say, hello, something's off here. So when it comes to foods and everything, I believe that, yes, there is, a bit where you could bring stuff into the 3D and that shouldn't really affect too much your 4 and 5D and, above and your level of connection. But at the same time, you're also a human too. So I think both realms need to be worked with. You need to work on keeping your spiritual connection growing and understanding, but at the same time, maybe to try to do your best with the vessel that you're in, because everything that you take in has a particular vibration to it. So the plants you take in, they have particular vibrations. Some people consume animal products; they have a particular, vibration to them. So it's just what do you want to have your body vibrating at, and so like some things like sugar, very addictive. And when we have a lot of it, we know that it can cause our body to break down, over time. Some people start to need insulin shots and things like that, because the body is breaking down. So there's keeping an eye on what you're putting in your body, but also the spiritual realm. Why are you putting that in your body? What makes you want to consume more and more sugar? So it's not just the addictive quality of it, but there's some shadow there that's saying, I need to do this to my body. So it's like a two-way thing. So it's not just, I need to just eat super healthy and that's going to help my connection. But I think what people are looking at it as is bringing stuff in, knowing the vibration that it is, and also questioning why I'm putting that in my body. So it's working on shadow, it's working on your belief system while you're trying to work on your spiritual connection. So I think it's a very mixed thing that's going on.
Right, like an as above, so below type of thing, like the connection there. I definitely can see that. I can see that. What about because I've heard people say, well, there could be like calcified pineal glands or, different types of blockages as far as, certain points in our body, like different chakras that need to be worked with, where you can release energy there. And that people can come in, like spiritual practitioners can come in and kind of work with those areas. Is that something that also people could look at as far as maybe if they have some sort of blockage or something that they feel is energetically off?
Yeah. So as I said, it's such a mesh. So I do believe that, the fluoridated water and stuff like that does, calcify the pineal gland, and there are things that can do harm to the actual physical body itself. Once I think the conscious being realizes, oh, hey, something's going on with my physical body, I want to stop that, but I also want to figure out how that's affected maybe my energy. So again, it's like a spiritual connection type thing. So we can be more mindful of what's going in and how it's going to affect us on a physical level. so that we can continue to grow on a spiritual level. And so I do believe that we do get blockages, like in our various many chakras that we have, not just the main ones, but we could get blockages there again, just based off of influx of energy. Sometimes we get into a place that's just energetically dense and not so good for us. And that has an effect on the physical body and the energetic body. I think it's all just being aware of not only the physical realm, but the spiritual realm as well. And just knowing that they're intertwined. And I think a lot of ancient cultures were very aware of that, and they tried to have, a healthy spiritual practice. And also they knew that there was the mundane, the muggle stuff, you got to go to work and you got to make money and stuff like that. But at the same time, many cultures had temples, and some had 2 calendars, like the Mayans, they had their regular, 365 day, we got to get a job calendar. And then we have the spiritual calendar, because they believe their time on earth was meant to grow, and so I think a lot of cultures believe that and still believe that. And that's something that I wish that some modern cultures, still, kept that in their sphere, is, hey, we're still spiritual beings.
I agree. Absolutely. I've been looking at different civilizations, Sumerians and Egypt. I've been kind of reading up on that. I went to Mexico for Day of the Dead.
I saw that
last year. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And one of the things, I felt like the relationship between death and, life and death, I felt like I learned a lot about that connection and about honoring that, your ancestors, and remembering them, and I don't know, it was really nice to see that, because death, for a lot of people, death is kind of a difficult thing to talk about. It's a difficult thing to be around, or they don't know how to relate to it, because they don't know what death actually is. Like especially if for people that just have the idea that death is just the end and lights out.
Yeah.
and for that, I think that's one of the toughest kind of mindsets to have, which because I think that's, I don't know. Some people have that mindset and they don't care at all. They're not worried about it. But for me, I've always kind of felt like, that's a little bit something hard. That's a little bit something hard for me to wrap my brain around, that it's just a lights out type of thing. But I respect people's views, but yeah.
But that's something that I really appreciate, about Earth, and what I've learned from my guides and my meditations is that we need people with various belief systems, and people that are more fluid in their beliefs, and people that are very rigid in their beliefs, because it helps us to look inwards in ourselves, because if we're all connected, then you're as connected to the person that believes it's this lights out as you are to the person that believes in reincarnation and things like that. And I think it's really good for us to challenge each other. So when somebody says, that's all it is lights out, and you're like, oh, okay. So it's like you take that in, and what comes up for me, with that belief, and what is scary about that for me, and what makes me feel less scared. And I think it's really good to kind of listen to other people. And there was something I had in a dream where I was talking to my grandmother, and I asked her at one point which religion got it right, because I knew I was talking to my grandmother. It wasn't just a dream. And she laughed and she says, all of them and none of them. And I was like, and I said, so like, was it Christianity with like the Bible, or was it like somebody else? And she says, listen, she goes, all you need to know is that everybody needs to believe in something or nothing. She says, and the person that believes in God or the person that doesn't believe in God are both absolutely right. And she says, and that's what's needed on earth. And I was like, oh, okay. So she says, so whatever you believe is right. And whatever everybody else believes is also right. And she says, and that's the way it has to be. And I was like, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I think we should allow that. I mean, we should definitely allow people to exercise their freedom to have whatever belief they want, to think about things they want, and
Hmm.
to really just explore what they feel, the direction they need to go in. Because like I think I mean we're all different. We're all, like you said, we're
Hmm.
all having different experiences, but we're connected, and so it all makes sense that we when all is said and done, that all these experiences come together. And it just makes more sense to me, that I mean, what would be the point if we all came here and had the exact same experience?
I
We might
know,
as well
like,
just have one person here. So
well, that'd be
yeah.
like having a classroom full of like gifted and advanced students and like a
Mm,
remedial, like, well, for you, chemistry, like remedial chemistry
mm.
class, but you got all of these gifted kids, they're all sitting in there, they all know the same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, what are we gonna do?
yeah.
It's just a matter of just repeating something, repetition, and in that case, everybody knows it already, so it's just boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean. Um, you were talking, so many interesting things, but you mentioned collective consciousness, and
Hmm.
how, and the way you said it made total sense to me, because I actually been thinking about that, and I've separated it into two kind of categories: collective
Hmm.
consciousness and unity consciousness. And for
Okay.
the collective consciousness, it's like it includes everybody's perspective, or like the world's
Hmm.
perspective, all up together, like physics, our concept of what spirituality is, our concept of relationships, and how those are supposed to work. All that stuff goes into that collective consciousness. But the
Hmm.
actual unity consciousness is what are the fundamental truths, like um, what things do we have in collective consciousness, that we can just pluck out? Like you were mentioning, okay,
Hmm.
most people believe that physics exists, so we can't fly. But what
Hmm.
if what if we never had that belief? And
Yeah.
what if the actual unity consciousness, this pure consciousness, was something different? Like the things that we think are real, they really are an illusion that really limits us.
Hmm.
And language could be one of those things as well, because I feel
Hmm.
like you know telepathy might have been something that we might have, like, what if we would have gone down that direction, and we would communicate it in a very different way, instead of using our mouths so much? And what if we would have done that, and then that would be a part of our collective consciousness? So there could be things in the collective consciousness that are correct, but
Hmm.
there could also be a lot of junk in there that you
Yeah.
have to, it's like a pyramid. You have all these things at the bottom, where it's like, I got to get through all of this. And it becomes a challenge, because not only do you have to get through those things, but you also have to face the ridicule of trying to get through them. Like, for example, if you say, oh yeah, I think that I can use telepathy. Well,
Yeah.
then you can work on that on your own. But as soon as you start talking to people about that, they're going to try to beat you down, like, hey, no, you're
Yeah.
weird. So there's this push against this pyramid of thoughts and patterns and all these things, until you can really find out what the truth is. So yeah.
I was thinking about while you're saying that, with the unity consciousness, it's similar to then, um, the consciousness within our own selves. We have our core beliefs, which may or may not be correct. We have our shadows and things like that. And so, like, let's say, one of my core beliefs is, like, I'm unworthy of love. So in my reality, I'm going to push love away in as many ways as I can to continue to make that true for me. So in the unity consciousness, if like somebody, like you said, starts talking about, oh, telepathy is something anybody can do, this is true. The core belief of everything says, nope, that's not true. We want it to continue to not be true. So we need to beat this one down. We need to beat
Right.
this little voice down.
Mhm.
So it's, very much what happens inside of us is like the whole as well. So that's why I always think that people working on their own individual shadows and cutting cords and all that is so important, because you really are connected to everything. And the more like everybody's working on their stuff, like that changes what is true in the unity consciousness. So
Right. Right. And I feel like people are working on stuff. More so than, in the past.
mhm,
I think there are subjects that can be discussed more. We still have a long way to go. I kind of feel like, well,
yeah,
but I think things have changed some.
yeah,
And when I look at that, it gives me hope. And I think, oh, okay, well, some years down the line, maybe 10, 15 years down the line, I wonder what things would look like.
mhm,
And because a lot of the youth today, they're exploring things that are really interesting. I was talking to
mhm,
someone the other day, and they were like, yeah, there's this whole like trend of youth that are trying to like um, they're trying to, I can't remember exactly what they said. It had something to do with parallel dimensions or something like that. They're trying to like change, like jump timelines or something like that. Like focusing
mhm,
on like, okay, well, are there different timelines, and can you live your life in a way where you can mentally focus your energy on a different reality, a different perspective,
mhm,
and sort of jump into those different things. And like that might be how manifestation might be working. Like all these options exist, and you can focus on the fact, like you said, I'm not worthy of love, or you can focus on the fact that like, you know, something different, and
mhm.
really feel that energy, and at the same time think of it as a jump or a shift in a pathway or a timeline, and not really so much like you're changing the things around you in this realm or in this area, but you're actually
Mhm.
going in a whole different direction. Now, that's an
Yeah.
interesting way of looking at it. I don't know if that's the case, but I thought, that's a really interesting way of thinking about it. And it made me think about, reality in a new way. And so learn something from from a lot of the things that are going on.
Well, yeah, I noticed that about the kids, when I was still teaching at the high school, is that they were asking questions more and more as the years went by. They were asking questions that didn't have so much to do with school anymore. And it was like, one of them says, I see spirits, but my parents don't believe me. Is there, and they're all coming to me, and I would never talk about any of my spirituality, of course, at school, because I'm just, was trying to teach them English.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like they were all just like coming up to me as if they knew that I knew.
Hmm.
And they're just like, hey, what do I do when I feel scared and I see spirits at night? Or somebody was like, I've been looking into the chakras and I'm wearing a chakra bracelet. Like, what would you say is causing um, my fear of public speaking? Which chakra is that? And I'm like, well, that's your throat and your solar plexus. And I'm
Right.
like, oh, okay. So they're asking me like all these things. And I noticed that, as the longer I was teaching, the more students were getting more comfortable talking about chakras, talking about spirits, talking about meditation, and some would chide each other. You didn't meditate last night, did you? And I was just like, wow, you would have never heard my friends in high school like ever talking about meditation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I hear that stuff too. And I think that it's good, because I think when they're younger, I think that if they don't lose that, I guess that whole idea of, being connected spiritually,
Hmm.
if they can keep that more, the more they can do that, I think it's just a better, because like now, at my age, I feel like, yeah, I can still do things, I can still work on this. I'm not going to be like give up and say, oh, I'm too old. But I feel like it's a little tougher, because I have that. I feel like I've been in the world so long, to the point where it's a lot of the beliefs have set in and become a lot heavier.
Hmm.
And so it's like a lot harder to lift those thoughts off. Whereas where I feel like now kids are, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are
Hmm.
growing up in a world where, if you mention meditation, or you mention, crystals, or chakras, it's not so, people aren't going to look at them in such a I guess an unusual way. They
Yeah.
can do that a little bit more. It's still, you're still going to get that resistance, like I said earlier, with if I start talking about telepathy,
Yeah.
someone might cringe at it, but not to the same level as it was. So I have to acknowledge
Hmm.
that progress that definitely has happened. So I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
I was just always like, oh, I liked the direction, the kids are going in. Actually, I was just dreaming about teaching last night.
Oh, really?
It's like I'm not teaching anymore. I'm still dreaming about teaching. But
I had a dream about teaching too, but now go ahead. I'll tell you about mine. Yeah.
so it was I don't remember all of it. I just remember the bits and pieces. And the bits and pieces were I had all the kids on this school bus, and there was all these multiple school buses, and we were going someplace to do art. Like they were all like together in like a um kind of like one of those amphitheater type places, and they were all just working on various forms of art and painting and sculpture and music. And then my something about trying to get them all back on the bus because we had to be back to school on time or something like that. And but it was all about like art, and then we have to be back to school on time. And then I woke up. But
Oh my gosh. It's that's interesting because I had a dream about school last night too. And but mine was not, mine was weird. It's one of those weird. The kids were setting fire to the trash cans. And I know it was like, it's like what is this about? And so this kid, like, kid got, kids were just getting in all kinds of trouble. And so we ended up, putting the fire out. But like when I saw it, I was like, I didn't know how to respond to it. So I went and told another teacher, and at the same time I was thinking, well, I should just call security. So I went and told another teacher, and then that teacher called security. And so finally we got the stuff taken care of, but it was just a mess. And it was it just felt so real. Like I was like, oh man, hopefully nobody sets fire to the trash can. And
mm,
so I'm just kind of now I'm kind of thinking about that because I know anytime I've ignored a dream where I've kind of thought, okay, yeah, this is something significant, something has happened. So in my mind, like I'm thinking about there's a trash can right outside my door. There's one in my door, and then there's another
mm-hmm.
one like right outside, like by the doors that go to the outside. And I keep thinking about that, and I'm like, maybe I should do something about that one because there's been kids caught smoking like by that door. Like when I go to lunch, when I go to lunch because it's a little corner and like there's
Yeah.
like a camera, but it can't really see them, and they'll go there because security never goes there, and they've been caught several times there. So maybe I need to keep an eye on that little area. And then there's another dream that I had a while back, and it was about school, but it was a different kind of school. So there was this there was this like building that I was in. It was really weird. It was a weird building, but because like every door, when you opened it, it was someone's room, but that room was like a whole world. And
Oh wow.
I went to like there was a third level. I was on the third level, and I feel like it was on the third level. I'm not sure which one it was, but I was it felt like a top level because when I
Mm-hmm.
opened the door, it opened to a desert, but it was someone's room, and their room was a desert with all these little caves, and you could see the sky when you went in. That's why it felt like the top, because you could see the sky. And I walked in there, and I was like, how do they stay in this room? They don't have any like shelter. They just go into these little caves. And it was people. It was like people in the tarot community. Like that room was Jules from Peekaboo Rose. It was her
Okay.
room. Yeah, that was like her room. And then you were there. You had a room, and then I remember walking through the hallway, and there was like this big window, and I looked through the window, and there was a city. There was this like futuristic city, and then
Mm.
they were like, and then walking by the window, there were like these different ETs like walking by the window, and I was just sitting there looking at them, and then one of them like kind of saw me and was like looking at me, and then when I saw it, this is so weird, but when I saw when I saw it, I was like, that's my sister, but it didn't look like my sister, like
Yeah.
looked totally like different, but I was like, oh, that one's my sister, and I just immediately thought, oh yeah, that's her. Hey, how you doing? Didn't think anything of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, when I woke up, I was like, dreams are so weird.
Yeah, I was trying to think. You're jogging my memory of um the other night, not last night, but um not last night, but the night before. Da, da, da. No, so
What is
it was
that?
like
I don't know that one.
what? You don't know that nursery rhyme?
No.
24 robbers came knocking at my door.
It sounds familiar a little bit. I have to go back and refresh my memory on that one. Okay, go ahead.
So like it was about school again. 'Cause I get my school dreams every once in a while. And it was something about school buses, and the dream neither felt scary or fun. It was like a very neutral dream where there was really like nothing going on, but it was at night. and something about kids getting on a bus at night, or a bunch of buses.
Mhm.
Um, and it just seemed like I was looking around and I knew I was dreaming. And I was just like, what? Like, there's nothing fun going on in
Mhm.
this dream. Like, this isn't like, I don't get it. It didn't really make any sense. And I woke up and it was around 3 a.m.
Mhm.
And there was a weird energy that was like by the bed, near where my head's at. And so
Mhm.
I was like, flooded it full of light, the whole room full of light in my groggy state. And I'm just like trying to like light up the room. I'm trying to like bring in source energy. And there was like these interesting things that were trying to look like the Azez that I work with. But I knew it didn't feel like them. And then it was like they shed that false skin and it was a bunch of grays, so all these grays
Oh.
went leaving the room. And then
Oh my
like
goodness.
then finally my Azez contact, I guess, he popped in, and it was all just kind of mental communication. I'm just like laying there in bed and I was just like, what is going on? I'm having like the most bland dreams
Do
possible. And then I
you
got like, uh, the what?
oh do you have like a mental image of the Zez?
Yeah.
Are they like light or are they colored? Do they have color or
Oh, the way I see them is like a sparkly green skin. Like it's like
oh
glitter,
interesting. Mhm.
and they have like just a few fingers and they're really long. And then the guy, he wears like, the main person that I talked to, he's got like this kind of rainbow glittery tunic or something that he wears. Um, yeah, he's kind of an unusual looking person, but like all you feel is love when you're around him. And like I feel like I recognize him from somewhere. Like
Mhm.
it's like it's a long lost uncle, like this person's family almost, kind
Mhm.
of thing. And so I was feeling very comforted, when he came into the room and I was asking him like what was going on. And he says that sometimes while people are sleeping and you're in a very open state, that he says energies, especially like grays and some extraterrestrials, they come in and they're downloading from your
Mhm.
dreams. They want to see where your weaknesses are. They want to see where your strengths are. They want to see where your shadows are at, just to collect information. Some of them want to use that stuff against you. He says some of them don't always have malicious intent or anything. He says, but it's a form of downloading. So they're trying to learn all they can about you while you're sleeping. And he's like, it is probably much better to not have people tapping into your brain while you're sleeping. So just make sure that your shields stay up and,
Yeah.
everything. And I was like, okay. Cause we've been working with, like you're talking about sacred geometry,
Mhm.
pyramids, tons and tons
Oh, okay.
of pyramids, because I love
Mhm.
triangles, but now we've expanded to pyramids instead of triangles. And so I've noticed that when I use triangles and like healing or protecting my energy is so much better than like bubbles of light and stuff like that. So triangles, or I mean,
Interesting.
pyramids, try them out.
Interesting. You have to try that. Definitely. Because I know like, a lot of people say that your Merkaba is more of a, two triangles kind of together.
Hmm.
You kind of sit in that. But yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, and you mentioned the grays, and I've been having conversations with people about that. They've been coming up regularly. And actually, Kate from Daily Tarot Girl, I've been talking.
Hmm.
I did two videos with her because in her hypnosis session, her past life was as a gray. And we were talking about that. And she said that, she did a lot of things in that past life that she regretted as far as
Hmm.
being a part of that agenda. And she felt like she needed to, in this life, really make up for that. And so that's why we kind
Hmm.
of been talking about this, because we've been kind of going over what that agenda is, what's going on with that, and kind of the
Hmm.
organization of, grays, reptilian, draconian, and the different races that are really kind of working, in the
Hmm.
shadows and things like that. And yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned that. And for a long time, the grays were in the media really they were trying to put them in this light of, oh, they're kind of innocent, they're kind of just,
Yeah,
these
they're just
and I
like
and
fun. They make movies
yeah,
about them.
yeah, they're the main ET group that we should think of when we think about that, and really focusing our mind's energy on that. And I don't necessarily think they're bad. And I actually
Hmm.
having another conversation with Gigi, who I met from Amber from Lavender Moon, I talked to her, and then there was someone that was commenting named Gigi. And we are going to talk about that because she is, she's really an ambassador for the reptilian group. And so I wanted to talk to her about that because um, it's true, you know, not all of them have that sort of negative energy associated with them. And there's different ways of thinking about that and even working with them. And it's interesting how it's all unfolding, because a lot of the things that I think are a certain way, I'll talk to someone else and I'm like, you know, that makes a lot of sense when you mention that. And yeah, you know, and to kind of separate the different categories, because when she was talking about reptilian and being a reptilian ambassador, I thought, oh, well, why? But then at the same time, she reminded me that draconian and reptilian are two sort of separate groups. And I wasn't thinking about that. And so it helped me to really kind of understand, you know, that there's different levels and a lot of things that we just don't know. And so we can put these little pieces to the puzzle together. But definitely, you know, on that whole topic of the grays, I find that, yeah, I think that they definitely, I mean, because they're telepathic, and I definitely think that they do, you know, download different little, I mean, they're very curious. And I find that, like, for them, their motivation is one thing, but because they're under this sort of control of, you know, a certain group, their agenda gets sort of, you know, thrown out of proportion. Because with Kate, she said that when she was, because I listened to her hypnosis, and she was doing a lot of work surveying and different things. I don't know what planet she was surveying. I think it was Earth, but she was doing a lot of surveying. And then at one point, the session went to when she was in a meeting, and there was a leader of this meeting, and she said she didn't really like this person. She didn't like what they were thinking about doing. And she said that they were thinking of putting people in these little individual, like, honeycomb shaped things to separate them. And I thought that it was really, what was really interesting about the whole session was that it went from this very mundane life of this gray to the important events. And it all unfolded in a way that even up until now, because she did this session a while back, even up until now, she didn't understand the significance of it until we really started coming together and really talking about what these things could mean. And it really makes a lot of sense, because before we even started talking about this, there were certain things that she would bring up. Like, she said, oh, you know, I don't really like technology. And I don't have, she didn't have a cell phone. She was kind of like, I don't want to like deal with all that stuff. And then I mentioned to her, I said, do you think that has something to do with, like, because the grays were so technological and how it really stripped them of a lot of their spirituality and forced them down a certain path, that maybe you see the danger in that? And she was like, yeah, you know, I can sort of see that. And so, yeah, it's just really interesting. And so we've been talking for like every month, and I've just been getting different people kind of in the discussion. But I wanted to talk to you because one of the things that we've been talking about was, like, you know, spiritual development and how to, like, strengthen ourselves. And I think you gave me a lot of information about that. Yeah.
Oh, yay. I'm glad I could.
Yeah. And I thought that was really important, because I think it was one of the components that we were missing. Because it's one thing to know all these facts and to think, you know, I mean, I'm not saying I know everything for certain, but to have an idea of what could be going on. But then there's another whole process where you have to realize, okay, well, what do we do about it? You know, how do we develop ourselves? And so I thought about you, and I was like, I'm gonna talk to you about it. And so, yeah, very, very good, very helpful.
Well, you know, I always have these crazy meditations. They're about as crazy as my dreams. Like, I never have, except for the one boring dream I had. But like, when I go to what I believe is the Akashic records, you know, sometimes, not all the time, you know, in my meditations, it's always, I don't know, like, I go outside of the earth, and it's like I'm in space, but there's a doorway in space, or kind of like a tear, you know, that's in space. And it's like you go into it. And I think it's my brain's way of trying to understand dimensions, you know, like kind of going, you know, through another door. And so I go up to this kind of floating ethereal, almost transparent looking thing. And when I go inside, it's nothing but moving sacred geometry. It's just geometry moving all over the place. And it's kind of what holds this thing together is the moving geometry in there. And I'm always greeted by my grandparents and my dog.
Oh,
And
cool.
and I asked them one time, I was like, Grandpa, like, how come you guys are always here? And they said, we're your point of contact so that you know that you're safe. And they said, and when you do cross over, we'll be the ones that are also here,
Oh,
for you,
awesome.
along with your dog, or my dog Precious. And I was like, oh,
Mm.
okay. And every time I'm there, I'm always under a time constraint. They're always like letting me know, hey, you don't have much time. We got to send you back. You can't be here for too long. And I'm like, oh, okay. And they showed me, it's kind of like this pool of water. And the first time I looked in it, I was just like, it helped me understand timelines, and not just earthly timelines, but like timelines outside of our dimension. And they were showing me like, it's like I could see samurais, I could see World War II going on, I could see um, something going on in the Orion constellation. There's just all this stuff going on in this pool of water I'm looking at. And so I remember asking I think it was Edward, one of my guides that was there. I was asking him, what am I looking at? And he says, you're looking at yourself down there. And I said, oh, but it seems like all that stuff is going on right now. And he's like, it is going on right now. He says, everything is going on right now. Like he
Wow.
says, you live in a place where there's time. He says, everything outside of your dimension has no time. So he says, so he goes, look at it this way. He goes, you're living and dying at the same time. You're both
Oh
alive
my
and you're dead
gosh.
at the same time. So he says,
That's
that's you as
crazy.
a samurai. And he says, and you're very much alive down there. He
Mm.
goes, and that's you. He says, off in Orion, you're very much alive there too, in whatever form I was in there. And he was like, and you're alive here and here and here and here, and you're alive in this meditation. And he's like, just make sure that you're aware of that. Is timelines are not just a beginning and an end, but they are like all happening at once, even though it appears like the past and the future to you. And I was like, oh. So when he was like talking about extraterrestrials, he says some of them, like people have mentioned, the grays are the technically future of one of the timelines of your species. So he
Yeah.
says, many believe that the grays are us when we get, to a certain technological advancement.
Mhm.
But they have to come back in time for us. But he says, really, it's no time. There's no time. So they're not going back in time. He says, you guys are overlapped. So I was like, it's like, well, that blows my
Interesting.
little gourd there.
No,
That's cool.
I've heard that before about the Grays too, and I wasn't sure how to take it or how to even wrap my brain around it because the whole concept of time, I'm still working on that because that's one I think that is when you're in 3D, it's so tough to really see everything happening at the same time. But I mean, I do agree with that though.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. Um, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that if we think of it in terms of everything happening at the same time and things overlapping and being,
Mhm.
maybe some group being able to kind of pop in and out of different areas to work on different things.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely could be the case. I always thought like Bigfoot was something like that, but that's a whole nother topic. Like he overlapped, I always thought like
Yeah.
it was this thing that sort of overlapped and was just kind of like confused walking around, like, for some
Yeah,
reason.
like
Yeah.
whoops.
Yep. Exactly. My
We just,
bad. I didn't
yeah,
mean to
my
freak you
bad.
guys out.
Yeah, wrong dimension.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I
that's why
think
we
that's the way it is. Like sometimes when people physically see a spirit, with their own two peepers, I think that sometimes it's just there was something that thinned, between the dimensions and just made it so like somebody just walking by is like, and you guys are just staring at each other for a second. It's like,
Yeah.
uh, who
Yeah,
are
exactly.
you?
Exactly.
They
Yeah, there's some
disappear and you disappear to them,
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's amazing, like, just thinking about all of that. And I also heard, like, how you have those different dimensions, like the fourth, and then it goes all the way up. I don't know how many it goes
Mhm.
to, but
I
it
don't
just keeps going up.
know.
And we were talking about how it's more like not really levels as far as like, okay, you're going up in levels. It's all like right here in the same place and
Hmm.
happening at the same time.
Hmm.
But I heard that the like for the fourth, it was more separate than the other levels. Like if you're like once you get to the fifth, there's a big difference between the fourth and the fifth in a sense that you are kind of like you reach a level where you don't have to reincarnate, you don't really recycle.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's because I've always wondered why people always talk about 5D and they always kind of skip 4D.
Yeah.
And I heard that was because like the fourth dimension is sort of a place where it's like, oh, you can be there as long as you want,
Hmm.
but eventually at some point you want to, recycle or reincarnate. And so
Hmm.
if you don't take a spiritual path, like for example the Greys, they want to put that back into their culture, put that back into and try to understand that. And
Yeah.
maybe that's one of the reasons why they visit us, because they feel like, okay, we're going to be stuck in a 4D reincarnation cycle. We're trying to bypass that whole thing. So I don't know, but I've heard that, and I actually read up on, maybe that's the case. But
Hmm.
yeah, fascinating stuff. And we didn't even get to talk
Yeah.
about crystals. And I do want to mention your crystal shop, the Desert Cauldron.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
Yeah, you and James have been doing that for a while, and I'll put the link to that as well. I
Oh,
didn't mention
cool.
that.
Yay. Yeah, we started May 1st of
Awesome,
last year. Yeah. Now I
awesome.
can say last year.
Yeah, tell James I said hi.
Yeah, he's in the other room over
Oh, okay,
there.
okay.
Probably
Yeah, it's
watching
been a
chess.
while. Oh,
Well, I
oh
have
yeah.
let me see, where is it here? I'm looking at my pillows. Nope, that's not it. There it is. Whew, my little alien fell down. Okay,
Okay.
so this is Fenster Quartz. So
Cool.
it's just like, or people call it window quartz or clay included quartz, but it's basically has very similar properties to Herkimer for its clarity. Like this is one of my Herkimers. Um,
Oh, beautiful.
but
Hmm.
it's I was using this one, and I was using azezite together, and that's kind of like what prompted all of a sudden working with the azez. And I was
Ah.
describing them to James because
Mm.
he had an experience with them, and he was like, "Yeah," he goes, "You're describing them exactly the way I see them too, with the glittery skin." And I was like, "Oh, really?" Because it was kind of like I had read up on extraterrestrials. I knew about the Greys. I knew about the reptilians and the draconians and all this stuff. But it's like I hadn't really had a chance to like work with them much. So I keep them under my pillow now so that I can, kind of have them in my dream state too. Because it
Interesting.
seems like with this, he won't even give me a name. He just says, you can call us whatever you want. Like names don't really matter to them. But he says, my main Azez dude, he speaks for all of them. They're kind of like, I guess, the Borg in Star Trek, that's the one
Ah,
voice for the many.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so he's like, it's his job to try to, well, their job to try to accelerate people's learning,
Mm.
you know, at this time. And so he's like, you're doing good trying to understand and learn things and be open to things. He says, but we got to speed you up a little bit. And I was like,
Interesting.
oh, okay, yeah, cool. So I've like been open to more lately. I've like been learning new things and things that are like challenging my beliefs, and I just think it's cool, like all this new knowledge kind of coming in. So I really feel like they're like pushing me or kicking me in the butt, like, okay,
Yeah.
girl, it's time for you to start working on these things and work on your shadows to clear you up so that you could do this, you could do this.
Yeah,
So I'm
exactly.
like, okay.
I think they really are trying that for a lot of people. Like with me, it's the Arcturians that are coming through. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I just feel like they are really trying to, get me to see things in a certain way, to really open up in a certain way. Um, but I think they've been there for a while because when I was talking
Hmm.
to Amber, I've kind of noticed that they've been there. I just never, really paid as much attention as I did until now.
Hmm.
But yeah, I immediately, like you were saying, just felt really a lot of love. I just felt like really connected, like family,
Yeah.
when I started, like, really having them at the forefront of like my meditations, and like being there, during times where I could focus on their energy. It was just really,
Hmm.
really beautiful. And so it's made me want to do that more, and really facilitate that connection.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I think about it. Yeah. Hmm.
And there was something because I can't find too much on the Azez. You can go online and you can
Yeah.
find out stuff about the Greys and stuff, but it's like there's like one book in existence that is one that I'm reading right now. Actually, it's by the bedside, but it's called Azez Medicine.
Oh, cool.
And it's like one book. Like you go on the internet, there's only one person has mentioned
Hmm.
this group of folks, and it has a lot of like activities in there for working on your own personal stuff and traumas and core beliefs so that you can advance, because that's what the lady who wrote the book, like that's what they came to her for, was like, hey lady, you got to start working on these things now, like a little bit faster, so that you
Interesting.
can open yourself up to learning and understanding. And really they said that's kind of like their main job, is just to kind of help people learn as much as they can while they're here. So they seem, really pretty cool, and they really want me to work with like the pyramids, and so that's what I've been trying to do quite a bit. um, I have noticed that like I try the pyramids out on like everything.
Mhm.
And so one of their exercises is, let's say you have an ache in the body, like I don't know, like sometimes I have astigmatism in one of my eyes. So even though I have perfect vision, my vision will go a little funky for like an hour, and then it's fine, you know?
Oh, okay.
And so, but my eye feels really heavy. It's kind of weird. And so like I'll be driving, my eye feels heavy and I'm like, oh man, my eye's acting all weird. So I imagine like uh like bubbles in a bubble bath, but it's a bunch of pyramids like kind of bubbling up next to my head, and then I imagine kind of letting them into my eye, and then it's this like glowy bubble mass of pyramids, and
Mhm.
like glowy blue kind of thing. And
Mhm.
so I let them go wherever they need to go in my eye, and I feel like kind of my eye tingling, and things moving around in there while I'm driving. So it's not like it's dangerous or anything. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it while I'm driving. But I'll just be driving along, and all of a sudden, it's like somebody took the windshield wiper, and my eye just clears up and feels normal again. And then I just like continue on driving. So I've tried it with other things, like if I bump my hip on that stupid counter that's out there, it's at hip level. I keep ramming my hip into it.
Yeah.
And so like so like I got this bruise now. I'm being attacked
Oh
by the
no.
kitchen counter.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so it was painful. So I was like, well, let me try my little pyramids on that. So I'm like imagining the little pyramids, and like within like a minute it was fine. And I was trying to show James, and I was like, I was even hitting it with my fist to show that the bruise didn't hurt anymore. It was like it was all gone. And I was like, that's amazing. So I'm like putting my little pyramids in and everything, because I was like, this is kind of something cool.
That sounds really cool. I have to try that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Cause
it's like it's like bubbles.
yeah. Cause like for me, if I could focus on something like that, I think that would help me in my meditations. Cause sometimes I'm all over the place. It takes me a while. It
Mm-hmm.
takes me a long time to get to the point where I feel like, okay, now I'm meditating. Cause like when I first start, I feel like I'm just sort of, I don't know how to describe it. Just like in my mind, like just kind of going over random pieces of information, some of which
Yeah.
I don't want to think about. And so it's just really weird. But then at some point, I'll finally get to the point where things really feel like I'm in a zone. But
Mhm.
some days it takes more than others, but something like that I think would help me because yeah, kind of actively working on something while I'm kind of trying to go into meditation.
They
Yeah.
had that, and then one of the other exercises was about water,
Mm,
because they were the Azez were talking to this lady, Faye Thompson,
mhm,
about water, and she was saying that um, they were talking about the planet, and that they said that it was the Azez and kind of the people from the Andromeda region that brought they didn't really bring water to Earth, but they
mhm,
gave Earth the idea that she could create water,
mm,
and so it was like kind of putting it in your head that you can do something so that you can manifest it, because they said Earth can manifest whatever it wants to because it's a living, breathing entity, and so Earth kind of had the idea that it could create this substance, and it created this water. And they're like, and if you think about it, um, water is something that can't be destroyed on your planet. You can burn anything else and turn it to ash, but water just changes form. Like
right. Yeah.
you can't kill water at all.
Yeah. No. No. Not at
They
all.
said it'll
It's gonna
evaporate,
recycle.
it goes
Yeah.
back into the sky, and they
Mhm.
said, and it's something that's in every living being has water inside of them. Like, you need water. If you don't have water, you die. Like, they said it's in your cooking, it's in your toilet, it's in your shower, it's like
Oh yeah.
everywhere,
I
and
mean,
so
absolutely.
yeah, so they were
Yeah.
like, you could they said because water is alive, and they said it's kind of like a liquid quartz crystal. People like
Mhm.
to program their water, and they said, and water has been programmed by us. And they said, so we put a lot of our thoughts, emotions, sometimes negativity, into our ocean and everything, and it affects us as a species because we put what we want in that water, and then it affects us right back. And so um, the activity was, every time you use water, either like going to the bathroom or taking a shower, cooking, whatever it may be, thanking the water and asking it to go back to its original programming of perfection before
Oh
it was
wow.
programmed by all of us. And they said, and by
Oh
doing that, the water that's inside your body starts vibrating at that frequency too. And they said, and I haven't been doing it long enough yet, but I want to try and see
mhm.
how that changes my own physical body, with just changing the vibration of the water that's inside my cells. So that might be kind of
I
cool.
that does sound kind of cool. There's a crystal grid on the north. I think I know there's one on one of the poles, or there might be one on both poles. But they built this crystal grid and they put it up there. You can look at it online, and it's
Hmm.
they just have it up there right at the pole, and it's for world peace. And so when you focus on that grid, you can focus your energy into creating peace in the world. And I thought that was really, really, really cool. It's still up there. It's just up there. It's I just it's like a quartz crystal grid, and
That's
they
awesome.
just arranged it in a certain way. Yeah, I found out about it probably about a year ago that I found out about it. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think that there's so much more like awareness and people trying to put a high vibration. I hate saying like doing good in the world because um, that denotes that there's like a bad and a good, and I don't know. I
Yeah.
have a,
Yeah.
I have
You're
a
right.
different belief system on that. So
Yeah.
it's like,
There's yep.
yeah. So yeah, you get it.
Mhm. Yeah, there's that
So
whole, either black or white fallacy where, you know, you look at, well, what is good and what is bad. And really there is no real clear cut uh, distinction with that. But yeah, I've been looking into that, and I totally agree. I see where you're coming from on that. Yeah, that's a
yeah,
tricky one though. That's a tricky one
it,
because a
it
lot of
is,
people don't want to, when you, I find myself like, even when I'm making my videos, and I think because me and James talked about this at one time too. We were kind of messaging each other about how the shadow and how the parts that we do need to work on, there's that pushback that I feel like I get from a lot of people when I try to bring that into the conversation or bring that into the topic. And so yeah. definitely. But no, I'm sorry, I took you
Oh,
off track. But I just had to, had
well,
to
yeah,
mention it
yeah.
because it was such a big thing.
Well,
Mhm.
well, that's a good topic too, though.
Mhm.
Because that is something that gets a lot of pushback. Some people will
Mhm.
mention, some obviously terrible things that have happened in the world, and
Mhm.
like I'm not going to disagree. I'm going to say, yeah, those were some horrible things. But think, what did that create? What was happening at the time that changed the energy, that shifted timelines. The timeline we were going down until this horrible thing happened, then we went down a different timeline. And so it's like, I don't know.
No, yeah.
It can get very tricky, because I think that once we're just in a pure spirit form,
Mhm.
um, we don't have the feeling and understanding that we do here. It's a different feeling and understanding. Where here we see thing as, that's a bad guy, that's a
Mhm.
good guy, this is a
Mhm.
good guy because, and this is a bad guy because.
Mhm.
Whereas outside of Earth, it would be, that's a lower vibrational energy, that's a higher vibrational energy. See how the energies mingle with each other. This lower energy has created this higher energy to evolve even higher because of their
Mhm.
negative energy, and see
Mhm.
how this higher now being has elevated this negative energy, but they need each other. They need to bounce off each other. And I think that, especially if people have experienced some major traumas, that's very hard to
Yeah.
see that as some sort of design, that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. It's a very tender topic because of, yeah, people's experiences. And I understand that. I understand it, but it's yeah, you're right. It's very tricky. And I but at the same time, you're right. Everything comes from the same source, I feel. And so it all belongs to the same thing, whether it's negative or positive. It all belongs to that same sphere in the end.
Hmm.
Um, and I always mention that when you isolate the shadow, it is one of those things that can just become confused and become its own sort of entity, and then it just continues to snowball until it gets recognized and healed and pulled back in. And you're
Hmm.
not going to escape it. You can't escape your shadow, just like your shadow here. You're
Yeah.
not going to be able to jump away from it and escape it. It's going to be there until it's worked with. But
Hmm.
but um but yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
see, where was I? Where was I going? Oh yeah, I know what I was saying. So it was kind of like what I was being shown before, is that there's a lot more high vibrational energy on this planet than we're shown, I think, sometimes. And that's not an accident, and that I do believe that there are so many, I mean, we call them light workers, but I just, a lot of awakened energy that's out there trying to raise the vibration, trying to help people through their shadows, trying to get them to awaken and kind of see the world from a different point of view or a different lens. And I do believe that the negative polarity or lower vibration would like us to not see that and see it
Yeah,
as the negative vibrations trying to take over.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
That's what
and
the YouTube algorithm does. No, I was kidding.
yeah,
It's
true.
like nobody sees my videos.
Yeah. Well, dude, like James will like post something on Instagram, and then it's like 2 hours later, 10 people saw it. And it was like, really?
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I believe there's all these things that are in place to make people not feel seen, not feel
Mhm.
heard, no matter what it is, whether it's an algorithm or it's the news or it's any outlet that can reach the eyes and ears of human beings,
Mhm.
because those energies know that us being powerful manifestors will start to manifest the environment that we believe that we are in. So if we
Mhm.
believe that we're in a world full of violence and hate and all of that, then yeah, we'll create a world full of violence and hate to match that vibration. But at the same time, there's going to be some that say, hey, I don't want a world of violence and hate. Let's change this.
Mhm.
So that negative polarity also helped, whereas it
Mhm.
also damaged. So yeah, so that's, yeah, my take on all that.
No, no, that's good. I agree. I think that that definitely when they do that, it's kind of putting that fear and negative energy into the collective and really causing that, like I said, it's like a pyramid where, you know, you have to get
Mm-hmm.
through that all of that junk until you get to the truth and get to what you really want, and, you know, get past
Mm-hmm.
your ego beliefs, get past all the things that are just weighing you down and really making you feel real heavy here. And the more I think the more the media, the more, you know, the world puts certain things in our face, of course
Mm-hmm.
it's going to really change, you know, it can lower your vibration, you know. It's
Mm-hmm.
like foods and all kinds of things that you were talking
Mm-hmm.
about the sugar, and, you know, yeah, feeding us that stuff. And it definitely, I think it has to do with control, it has to do with
Mm-hmm.
manipulation, and ultimately just, you know, it just comes down to the root of it is just fear.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so we have to really, I think we have to work hard at that. And part of it is, I think, what we're doing now, really trying to discuss things in a way where it becomes more commonplace, where it becomes,
Yeah.
oh, you know, you can talk about these things and it's okay, and then people can do these things and they don't feel weirded out about it. And I think that right there is a step in the right direction. And because I don't know that the I think I don't know, it feels like the way things are set up, I don't know that we can combat it in on their terms. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like I said, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because knowing their strategy, knowing that they're manipulative, knowing that the media does this or that is
Mm-hmm.
one thing, but also really being able to work on yourself and, you know, heal. Because I know, like, anytime, well, most of the time when I talk to people, they've said, well, anytime I've connected with something spiritual, one of the first things they try to do is get me to heal, use certain things to heal, give me tools for healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so healing ourselves and then being able to, you know, look outward and heal others is really a good way to go. I did it. My last video I did was on the Nine of Cups, and on the Nine of Cups, you know, he's got those cups in the background, and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people take it a certain way, but I've seen that when I see that card, I see two things. I see, okay, well, you have two things you can do. You can at that point know that, you know, those cups are there, but they're not your focal point, and that
Mm-hmm.
your focus is, you know, your success is your success and your happiness comes from you and not from the cups behind you, because you're not focused on
Mm-hmm.
that, even though those might be great things. But you're in your own power because of your connection on an inward level, and
Yeah.
that's what's caused you to be at that point. Or you could look at that card and think, okay, well, success is having this, that, and the other, and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
having all this material stuff, and that's the fault. I think that's the faulty way to kind of go.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that leads to one of those, the path that where you go inward and you really find that connection. Really, I feel, for me anyway, leads to a more solid Ten of Cups experience, because the Ten of Cups, you can look at that in different ways too. You can look
Mm-hmm.
at that as you know, when you look at that card, sometimes people look at that card in a comparison type of way.
Yeah.
And comparison really steals your joy, because if you look at that and you try to compare yourself to this utopian type of experience on an
Mm-hmm.
outward level, you know, where you're seeing, you know, rainbows and you're seeing a wonderful family and you're seeing all this stuff, and you think that that's success when you haven't dealt with the inward part of it. I think
Mm-hmm.
you can go to the Ten of Cups in from two pathways. You can go through the pathway of the material part of it, or you can go to the pathway of, I reach this Ten of Cups energy by
Mm-hmm.
finding the happiness within, because
Yeah.
that cup on the thought system is happiness. And so it says that because it says, okay, well, do you know what that is before you go to the Ten of Cups? You
Mm-hmm.
know? And so I find that that's part of, I think, where we're headed, you know, as a society,
Mm-hmm.
like going to that part where we've really figured that out. And it's been a struggle. I think it's a struggle because a lot of things that I think come up as a society when we do that. There's a lot of things that start coming out, and there's a lot of opposition. And so I think that just sort of needs to heal and just mend first, and then I think, you know, we'll start seeing, you know, things work out a lot differently. But the challenge is getting there. And when you have all this stuff thrown up in your face about, you know, all these fearful things, getting
Mm-hmm.
to that point, I think that's one of the main blocks that we have, you know.
And I think that's
Yeah.
why people push, the healing so much, healing aspect is
Mhm.
because fear is, kind of at the core of everything. Self-worth is, a fear of not being loved or accepted, self-esteem, or fear of this. It's down there in people's cores somewhere to some degree. And so the negative polarity, which vibrates with the energy of fear, would like to connect with that energy that's inside of us. And I don't really see them as bad because it shows people where their fear lies.
Mhm.
So like, let's say the news and whoever's in power and whatever, all I see is people, let's say, getting beat down for speaking out, and or speaking their beliefs, or whatever it may be. And I have a fear that people will not accept me for saying certain things unless I say what everybody else believes. I have a fear that people won't love me. I'll have a fear that, maybe people won't be my friends anymore. I'll be alone. It's the fear of being alone, at its core. So I could either, take a couple of, well, that's probably more than just two things, but let's just say, for instance, I could take an A or a B path, so all this stuff is coming up, and I recognize that, okay, all this stuff is triggering me because at my own shadow, my own core, is I have a fear of being alone, and I see those people getting ridiculed. So I can either say, I don't want that to happen to me. I'm going to continue to hold on to the shadow, and that's my choice. Or I don't want that to be the case anymore, and I don't want them to be able to control me with my own fear anymore, because that's the only way they can control you, is with something that you already have. So if somebody believes something, it's because it's inside of them, and that's why they're triggered by it. When I see child abuse, obviously because I worked so closely with kids, that pissed me off to no degree, because that was a shadow that was in me. I had child abuse, growing up. And so when I saw outwardly, I was like, oh my gosh, now I'd be probably even more outraged than the person next to me, because I had trauma in that area. So I could either continue just to get outraged by seeing it, or I could try to heal the aspect inside of me, recognize it, and also, of course, try to help in any way I could, for kids that have suffered through something like that. But in order for me to not be brought back to that and be controlled by the fear and all of that, and I need to heal from it. So I think that those negative polarities, whether people hate the media, love the media, whatever, hate the president, love the president, or whoever's in power, whatever, is just remember that those things that you hate or are triggered by, or fearful of, it's something that's inside of you. And I think that that's very hard for people to accept. These like, well, I don't hate anybody. Why would I, It's like, well, somewhere inside there's something that's saying, I'm triggered by this, or I don't like this person. But why? Let's go inside.
Yeah, you have to get to the root of that issue. And I think that, yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to really heal that within yourself. I mean, there's definitely things on the outside that, like you were saying, you want to advocate for and try to correct. But if you're not doing that same inward journey, then you're missing, I think, the whole point. I think the main thing that can really help you in that situation and really transform it on a deeper level. Because like I was saying earlier, the conventional ways of trying to deal with, whatever is going on around us, I don't know like exactly all the details, but whatever is against us, the way to deal with it. I mean, I don't think everyone's voice on the world is loud enough to, to really combat this on that level. I think that, we're just dealing with some master manipulation, type of tactics going on, and on a level that is extreme. So I think really, yeah. So I think
just
really
a little bit.
Yeah, and I think really working on, like you said, if we don't have it, then they can't use it because they're not creating; they're just using what's already there. So if you can start working on things within yourself and removing those things, then whatever is used against you doesn't have the effect that it's intended, and it doesn't work. It's just like with teaching. Like if there's a kid in my classroom that is trying to push my buttons, I'm smarter than them because I've been doing it for a long time and I know what they're doing. I'm like, you're pushing my buttons because you want negative feedback, negative attention, whatever. And I see exactly what you're doing. And so if you nullify that response, like that kid tries to push your buttons 3 times, at some point, if you can get it into that kid's head that, you're wasting your time, they'll switch to a different tactic, and you just kind of work with them within that. There's just like the kid that wants to confront you in the class, that tries to like, they try to do something and then
they want to find your weak spot.
What they want is they want to get your attention, and then they want you to cause a confrontation in front of the other kids so that the attention goes on them. But when that happens, you immediately have to, just kind of calmly point to the door and just continue not to say anything to them until they just walk out, and then call security and then kind of get that out of there. Because if they get that result, they're going to continue to push for that type of behavior because it worked. So it's like that with this scenario. You have to make sure that you've dealt with it on a certain level, and you understand your behavior, you understand why you're reacting a certain way. So if you're becoming confrontational with the student, then there's something within you that is, they found what pushes it. They found that trigger, and they're working with that trigger. So it's the same thing. You have to know that when you meditate or when you go inward, you have to really look at what your body's telling you. Like we were saying, like you were talking about how you have your spiritual side, and then you have the body and the things that are happening in the body, and it's connected. And there's that as above, so below type of energy and feedback going on, and you have to get to the root of that. I think it's the same thing with what's going on here. And so when we had our discussions about a lot of this stuff, I think that's one of the directions that I wanted to go in, was really trying to go in the direction of like, what can we do on a psychic level? What could we do on a deeper level? Because you're right. It's one thing to know, but to actually be able to heal yourself is a whole nother story. Because
I think it's the extra step, because there's the conscious level of knowing, like, for me, one of my many shadows. Which one? One of them is a fear of being alone, so consciously I say, something will play out in my life, and I say, I know where all this is coming from, or why I've put myself into a particular situation. Like logically I know, because there is this shadow inside of me, but it's the extra step, knowing that confronting the thing, it's called a shadow because it's scary, So confronting the thing that you're most scared of is something that is difficult, for people. Some people have to really take a look at themselves and take a look at the thing that's scary, because that thing isn't just in one place in your belief system. It branches out like the roots of a tree. So it's connected to a lot of things. It's connected to the people that you've allowed in your sphere. It's connected to your career. It's connected to your friend circle. It's worked its way in all these things. So then you would have to, like, for a lot of people, it's scary to feel like your foundation is coming out from under you, because you're like, oh my gosh.
Like, you're right.
I've done this to myself, there's sometimes, I'm not saying like we do everything to ourselves, but we have a pretty good hand in what happens to us.
That is so true. It's almost like if you go back to that 9 of Cups and 10 of Cups scenario, it's almost like different people at different points in their lives can reach an understanding of what that 10 of Cups really should look like for them, where they really are building a foundation of
Mm-hmm.
something solid. And like for me, for example, I didn't realize that until later. So yeah, so now when I look back and I look at a lot of the things around me, I realized that I built a foundation that's more of a cage in some areas of my life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you think about your career, your finances, you think about like your friends and family, you think about all these things that they're important. I'm not saying that
Mm-hmm.
they're not important, but you think about them as your foundation, but they're really not your foundation. And it's hard as that is to admit that everything around you, most of the things around you are not your foundation, and that your foundation has to come from within, is
Mm-hmm.
a tough one. Because when you think about, am I willing to let go of my illusion of a foundation, what I thought was
Mm-hmm.
the actual foundation? That's scary. It's
Yeah.
absolutely terrifying, you know. So yeah, and that's hard to tear yourself away from. It really,
And
really is.
James, who's um like he's we're in a lot of respects opposite each other, where I like to do things kind of at a slower pace. When I heal some things, I'm like, okay, like little bit at a time. Little For him, it's like rip off the bandage, take me to the core, as dark as it is, and let's heal
Yeah.
this thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
just like we'll get into like the 3 foot depth of the pool first before we get to the 8 feet
Mhm.
deep. Like let me get down the staircase first, slowly, one stair at a time, where he'll just jump in. And so
Mhm.
but he's kind of helped me, a lot with that
Yeah.
stuff, because it's like
It's that
especially the
Scorpio, it's that Scorpio energy of James. He's
dude.
he's he's like the
It's
death card for all of the things around you.
which
And
is
that's
why he rubs people sometimes the wrong way, but he's helping them to see things that are sometimes really scary to see and to admit,
Mhm.
which sometimes I get kind of like, but it's like, when he'll, say things like, he says a lot of, our shadow and stuff is created in childhood, our
Mhm.
belief system and the way we interact with people, the way you saw your parents interact and how they interacted with their friends, or how they talked about themselves. And that's how we learn to talk about ourselves, and how we learn our relationships, and everything is from there. And he says, so when you're a kid, yeah, he says, you have to, your parents are there, they're kind of in charge of you. And it's very hard to, have this whole spiritual mindset when you're like 5 years old, because these people are your whole world.
Right.
He says, but when you're an adult, he says, well, in his eyes, he goes, it's very silly to continue believing what you believed, because a couple of people who were unhealed themselves,
Mhm.
raised a child together.
Right.
And so he's saying, he says, all those things that you think are awful in your life, like, oh, and then this person hurt me and this person hurt me. He says, everything's 50%. So 50% you brought that person in to hurt you. And he says, I
Mhm.
mean, on a conscious level, you're like, of course, I never want anybody to hurt me. But at a subconscious level, you're like, yeah, I deserve it. Come on.
Mhm.
Cause conflict with me, hurt me, and so that's very hard for a lot of people to accept, if they've dealt with trauma as a child, and now they're dealing with trauma as an adult, and they're like, there's no way. It's I'm a victim, and it's just these people, for some reason I'm attracting mean people. And it's like, well, why?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to really, I think, and part of it is really accepting that in the first place. It's one thing
Hmm.
to deal with the trauma, but a lot, like you said, a lot of people, they don't want to accept that they have anything at
Hmm.
all, with the friends that they're choosing, the environment that they're putting themselves in.
Hmm.
Um, and you see that a lot in therapy. Like someone will be getting in a bad relationship after bad relationship,
Hmm.
and then they go back into the past, and they're like, and then the therapist will take them through their past and kind of pick apart different things, and find the answer somewhere in something that just some trauma that needed to be healed, that was causing them to seek
Hmm.
out this thing. And it's but if you never admit that and never look for it, and it just keeps repeating. It's yeah, it's definitely something that we have to admit. You have to admit and
Mhm.
have to really look at it. And but it can be painful. It can be very
Very
painful.
painful because
Yeah.
it's the ego, and I never try to
Mhm.
badmouth the ego, because the ego, I just see it as it's the helicopter parent who thinks they're doing good by
Mhm.
protecting you, and in a lot of ways the helicopter parent ends up harming the child more than protecting, even though they think they're protecting. So the ego might be saying, no, I can't admit that I've allowed certain people into my life to perpetuate a particular belief or a particular trauma because I don't know any other way. Then that means that I take responsibility for it. And it's like, oh, why would I ever do that to myself? I can't believe that. You know, it was them that
Yeah.
hurt me. I would never try to hurt me, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big pill to swallow. It's like,
Yeah, it is.
like, okay.
Well, I really enjoyed talking to you. And
Yeah,
I got
this
a
was a lot of
lot of
fun.
yeah, yeah. We have to have you on more. I should have been talking to you months ago. But but yeah, so I'm going to put all your information. So if anybody's interested in checking out all the stuff you have to offer, and then they can just click on any of the links there, and the plethora of but yeah, and yeah, so I will message you, and maybe we can talk again in the future.
That'd be great.
um yeah, that would be. And then also I talked to James. I asked James one time, I was like, hey, let's do a video together, but he never got back to me.
Well, he doesn't like to be on video.
I
I
know.
mean,
I think I saw. Did I see a picture of him though? Was he in one of the pictures on on your Etsy shop?
oh, he's in the only because I made him, but it's down in the bottom where it says like who the shop owners are. But you have to scroll
Yeah. Okay.
to the very, very
Okay.
bottom. And
No,
yeah, I think
I saw it,
it's
but
the
I couldn't.
only
I couldn't.
picture.
Yeah, I saw it, but I couldn't believe it was him. I was like, maybe he got like an imposter to stand in there because I know he doesn't like them.
Well, I was
Okay.
like, we're setting up the shop, and I was like, okay. I said, so I'm putting in our little picture for the shop owners. He's like, okay. I was like, I'm gonna use this picture, and he's like, why can't we just put your picture? I was like, because you're the other shop owner. And he's like, I guess.
Okay. I'm gonna help him get over that thing. I'm gonna go crop that thing out and put it as my thumbnail. Like, and put James on it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do that to him. But no, thank you so much for coming on. And
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
yep. And so enjoy your day, and I'll get back to you, and maybe we'll set up another time to talk.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I had a great time. This is fun. Like
Yeah, yeah,
so
it
many
is.
awesome things.
I know. And I still wanted to talk to you. I had to stop myself because I wanted to talk to you some more about the last thing about the ego that you were talking about, but I'm not gonna get had any more. That's a whole nother hour. Okay. All right. So thank you. And thank you all for watching. And this is Atypical Tarot and Kitten Waits and Tarot. And we'll see you next time. Bye. Peace out.
Peace out.